Namaste. Today I would like to share with you a short yin practice that is great to do after a workout or a run when your quadriceps, your thighs are really sore, or if your hip flexors are really tight. You'll love this practice. It would be great to have a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, you could just take 2 blankets and roll them up really tight so you have that as a support. And if you have 2 blocks, if you don't have blocks, you could always take some thick books, stack them up, just get creative with your props. But we'll start on your belly. Come onto your belly, your legs extended behind you and your elbows under your shoulders. Allow your legs to be relaxed. So you see my heels just turn out a little bit when I do that. So maybe your legs do the same, or maybe your heels turn in. So whatever your legs do, just let them relax. And let your buttocks be relaxed and your spine to literally hang out here. If you find this creating too much compression in your lower back, you can always bring your elbows a little further forward. Hold your elbows. And so that the arch in your lower back is a little less pronounced. And if you can, just be here. And as you relax all your muscles as best as you can, there is an opportunity here for your hip flexors to release, the big muscles that attach your torso to your femur, the thigh bone, that allows your hips to flex. So see if you can soften here in this shape. Noticing your breath as it flows in and out. Notice if there's any tension in your jaw. Maybe turn your tongue around in your mouth 3 times clockwise and 3 times counterclockwise to release any gripping of your jaw muscles. One of the big hip flexors is the psoas muscle. The psoas is attached to your spine, to T12, the lowest part of the thoracic spine, and then runs straight through the pelvis and attaches to the inside and front of the femur bone. So see if you can imagine that that big muscle really relaxes here. It literally just hangs out as you breathe in this shape. And take 2 more breaths here. And slowly allow your chest and your head to lower down to your mat. Let your head rest on your hands. And take a moment to pause and notice the effects of this first posture, the Sphinx pose. And then slowly come onto your knees and reach your hips back into a child pose. Your knees can be at any distance apart that feels comfortable. Just a moment here to relieve any tension from your lower back. And come on to your hands and knees. Step your right foot forward between your hands. Take your blocks and place them under your hands. Slide your left knee back just so that you feel an interesting stretch here in the front of your left thigh, in the front of the hip, without it feeling really intense. And then literally allow your pelvis to hang. It comes down and forward. And so there is no engagement in your legs here whatsoever. And it's nice to have the blocks here so that your belly and your rib cage don't get compressed on your thigh. Of course, you could have your hands on the floor, but depending on the length of your femur bone, the thigh bone, and the length of your arms, you may feel a little stuck here. So I prefer to have blocks so I have a little more space here in my right hip. And without engaging any muscles, energetically draw your right heel a little bit back so that your left hip can come forward just a hair. And just like you did with your spine in the Sphinx pose, allow your pelvis to literally hang. It's a very passive pose. Bring your awareness to your breath. In Yin Yoga, we're not targeting the muscles, rather than the connective tissue and the joints in your body. However, since everything is connected in your body, of course, when you're in a pose like this and you're pulling on the tissues, the muscles are affected as well. So also in this pose, you will affect the psoas, that big hip flexor that again runs from the back here attached to your spine and through the pelvis and attaches to the inner femur right here. So that's partly why this is such a great practice if you're feeling sore and tight after a run or a workout. Take 2 more slow deep breaths here. Now press into your hands. Use your arm strength to carefully move your hips back. Bring your hands down to your mat and walk your hands back a little bit. See if you can sit on the inside of your left heel. Again, just getting a gentle stretch here for the front of your left thigh, your quads. Now, if this doesn't feel like a gentle stretch at all, this feels like a huge stretch, sit on your block. We're just going to be here for a moment. And just brief respite before we go to the other side. You may like to close your eyes and just notice your breath for a moment. And as you open your eyes, use your arms again to carefully come up. Bring your right knee back to the floor. And from your hands and knees, now bring your left foot forward. Your right knee slides back a little bit. Just enough so that you feel something there, but not so much that it feels like you couldn't stay here for longer than a few breaths. And again, allow your pelvis to come forward and down. You allow your muscles to relax, your hands on the blocks if that works for you. Your stack of books, whatever you have here. Energetically or isometrically pull your left heel back, meaning that you imagine that you're pulling the heel back, but you're actually not moving it. Just so that you invite your left hip back a little bit and your right hip slightly forward so that your pelvis stays in a nice neutral alignment here. Notice your breath. And notice how different this practice is from a dynamic practice or a workout or a run. And clearly, simply because you're not moving, and yet the fact that you're not moving and not engaging your muscles makes this practice so effective. Creates lots of space in the connective tissue that surrounds your muscles, that is enmeshed in your muscles, and creates range of motion in your joints that can get stiff when they get overworked or when there is lack of hydration in the tissues and in the joint capsules. So even if you didn't do a workout and you're not very sore, but just are looking to increase your range of motion, this is obviously a great practice for anyone. Take another nice deep breath in. Maybe let out a gentle sigh here. Then press into your hands. Use your arms to move your hips carefully back. And bringing your hands back behind you, sit on the inside of your your right heel. Letting your buttocks come down and pause here for a moment. And again, if this is too intense, if there's any strong sensation in your right knee, you can always sit up on a block. I'm not going to be here very long, so whatever works for you. And then lean back to your left hip so you can carefully straighten your right leg. You may even like to lie down for a moment, just to notice the effect of these two poses. What I sometimes notice when my hip flexors are really tight because I overwork them, that it actually impacts my digestion too. And then when I start to loosen them up, that all of a sudden my digestion starts to kick in again and I feel this rumbling in my belly, which is actually a great sign for healthy digestion. And then bend your knees and slowly roll to your side and come back up to sit. For our last posture, you may want to use your bolster. If you don't have one, again, you can get creative with folding a couple of blankets or placing them on top of each other and rolling them up so you have something that is pretty thick. Not everyone may need the bolster, but my experience is that most people actually prefer this pose with a bolster. And you could even put a block under it and have it up a little bit higher than it just being flat on the floor. So wherever you are, sit in front of the bolster between your feet. Now, if this is not possible for you, if this creates too much pull on your knees, if this is too intense on your quads, you are not going to go further back into this pose. You'll take a block, place it between your heels, and just sit like this. And give your quadriceps and the tissues in the upper leg a moment to release, and perhaps after a few minutes you can take the block away and sit more easily between your feet. If you are able to sit like this, then you could lean back with your elbows on the bolster, and maybe that's enough for today. Or if it works for you, roll all the way back onto the bolster. You want to leave your lower back free. So the bolster is under just from above your waist up, I would say, but the lower back is free. I'm going to set my timer. Let your head rest. And perhaps close your eyes wherever you are, whether you're sitting or lying back on your bolster. And again, see if you can find complete softness in your body here. So allow your legs to be relaxed, and if your knees come off the floor, that's fine. If your knees are wide, that's fine. They don't have to be straight in line with your hips. See if you can soften your belly and allow the head to really rest into the bolster or your blankets. Shoulders relaxed. And if you're here and you feel like you don't really need that bolster, feel free to just take it away and let your upper body and your head rest on your mat. If you're here and it's okay, but at moments you're wondering if you should be coming out because it's getting kind of intense, what you could do is engage your abdominal muscles and draw your tailbone to your knees for a moment. So engaging this lower part of the core stabilizes your SI joint and takes away some of that compression that you're actually looking for here, which is very healthy for your spine. And at the same time, of course, what we're doing here is to, again, lengthen the tissues in the upper legs, in the thighs, around the quadriceps and the hip flexors. So notice your breath as it flows in and out. The belly rises as you inhale and falls as you exhale. Notice if you're still aware of your breath. You're still softened in your body. If you were sitting upright on that block, you may want to take the block away now and see if it's easier to simply sit between your heels with your buttocks on the mat. And if it is, then you may want to just stay there. And if it's still not, then feel free to take the block back under your sits bones. And if you were leaning back on your elbows on the bolster, perhaps you could carefully roll yourself back all the way down onto the bolster, noticing if that feels more doable right now. And take 2 more nice deep breaths here. Then bring your hands next to you and use your arms and your core strength to press yourself up. Bring your hands in front of you and come onto your hands and knees for a moment. And pause here. Notice the blood flow in your legs, release of your lower back. Maybe gently shake your heels side to side. It may feel good to extend one leg, tucking your toes under, getting a brief calf stretch in here too as you bring some relief to the knee that was bent the whole time. And lower your knee and other leg. And then come to lie down on your mat, put your bolster to the side, and just rest on your back for a moment. You can close your eyes if you like. Just give your body a moment to absorb the effects of this short practice. Take a nice deep breath in and sigh out. Of course, you can stay here as long as you like, or slowly bend your knees, roll to your side, and come up to sit. Close your eyes for a moment to notice the effects of this brief Yin practice. To loosen the flexors, your quads. Thank you for practicing with me. Namaste.